Hello, am I live? Does everyone hear me? Is there any way to get any confirmation? Is my audio okay? And all right, great. Okay, so let's see where to begin. This document open. All right, so I guess I'll begin just talking about who I am and what I can put. Hope I'm just here to talk to all of you and hopefully relay some useful information to all of you. My name is Christopher De Jesus. I'm currently a computer science student at Cornell University. I have taken part in many different aspects of of college life, as well as other parts of life, such as being part of a project team where I was responsible for working on this really awesome project that like a team of people are working on to like complete and build by the end of the year, as well as holding different job positions such as a data analysis like script building engineer over at TCAT, which is the local bus service company, as well as also 1 year being an instructor over here at BlueStamp. Next this summer, prospectively, assuming things go on as per normal, being a lead instructor, as well as here's something. Oh, starting a company. Well, currently in the process of starting a company along with some other people called Cardway, which is meant to be an event matching sort of itinerary sort of app. I can't shake the feeling that I'm still forgetting something else. Oh yes, and I'll be getting to this a lot later. Having attended many different hackathons, and that's something that I think everyone should be doing, even at high school. It's changed my experience. So I think I'll start. I think the way I want to, I guess, I could start talking is just canonically what I've done. Um, so uh, back in high school, I went to a high school in the Bronx, New York. Um, I and it was honestly a small school in the Bronx. It wasn't anything big. It wasn't. It didn't have any. It didn't even have a CS program. Um, I it was kind of interesting because I didn't really get exposed. My only exposure to different colleges that I could choose from were from my family, and the colleges that my I was the youngest in my family, so the college that they were choosing. So choosing the best college, honestly, was diluted to what my friends were telling me and what what faculty and teachers were telling me, and then what um, my siblings and family also were saying. So I wanted to make the best decision, and so that what that basically came down to was um, what colleges had the programs that would most benefit myself. Um, and as someone who's going into CS, I noticed that Cornell has a really awesome CS program. Not only is it like really, not only have they done really awesome different parts of research and all that, they also have a lot of resources for independent work. Um, and that for as one example of that are project teams, which I'm not sure. I know other universities have project teams, but there's a really big project team scene on the Cornell campus. For just let you know what project teams are. I'm going to just, I think the best way, it's really difficult to just explain what they are without just like giving an example, but they're like a sports team, but for STEM. And for some people, that just sounds really, really exciting. Other people are just like, wow, are you a nerd? And the answer is yes, but it's also really cool. So what I definitely, with project teams, it's just so cool because one example of a project team is CU Air, where they build an entire plane that's autonomous and also controlled by a remote, but the primary objective is to have it autonomous, and it like completes various objectives, and it's really cool because they compete in a competition every year against other universities, and it's just you have this team of people who are just constantly innovating, iterating, and creating better and better and better tech, and it's just really, really cool to be a part of that, especially just like imagine coming straight out of high school and being able to just do something like that. It's really awesome. It's basically it's pretty close to like being part of a robotics team in high school, except the next level. It's like super competitive, really awesome. Like it's a lot of fun. I'm personally part of Cornell CUP Robotics. It's actually non-competitive, but it's non-competitive because the Cornell University hosts the competition, and it's really quite the experience because it's completely robotics based. That's what the project team does, and we're currently building a lab assistant robot. And at the moment it's really interesting because what you end up finding is that what I ended up finding personally was that honestly a robot kind of reminds me of how the BlueStamp projects work, because what you have is all these different subcomponents that people are like these little smaller teams in the project team are building that then are sort of like put together and then put together as building blocks. But if you really break it down, one of those small tiny subparts are a lot like the types of projects that students make at BlueStamp. That was an observation that I remember making earlier today, and like when I was thinking about what I was going to talk about, and it was really quite interesting because, for example, one of the subparts of our robot is something called the precision arm. The precision arm is basically an arm. It can move to very like controlled amount so it can pick up objects in a very precise fashion. It's called precise arm. And with that arm, there's also another component that's working with it called we just call it object detection. There's the object detection subteam that's working with precision arm. So the mechanical engineers are building the arm, and then we have a CS subteam like building the programs that are going to run this arm. And what you have are these people working on very specific parts of this project, and those small parts are very similar to what I've seen people building in 6 weeks at BlueStamp, which is pretty cool. All right, so I'm just looking quick these notes. All right, I just want to backtrack a little bit. As I mentioned, I'm currently in the process of trying to found a company called it's called Cardway, and as I mentioned in my about, as it was mentioned in my about, right now is not the best time to start my company, and as a company we've decided that is a big no-no, and I mean that's fairly obvious for a lot of people. But there's a combination of factors that go into when would be a good time to start a company. In our case, it really boils down to two factors. One, is the economy good? The answer is no. Right now, the economy has kind of taken a big dip. It'll go up, but it's right now taking a big dip. So right now it's not a good time. Two, will your app be widely used at the time you release? Like, is it something that people are looking for? And the answer is right now is no. In fact, it's actively discouraged. So, because our app is based on social interactions. So that was also a no-brainer. No. So we've delayed launch until social interactions become socially acceptable again. It's just an unfortunate reality of the moment. On the bright side, what that means is it gives us extra. We don't feel pressured to have to push out this app as soon as possible, and we actually have some more time to sort of like build up and improve this app for once things begin to return to normalcy. So pros and cons, but that's where that company is. So I also want to get on to the to that position I mentioned, where I do basically, I also kind of want to talk more about what I do in that position. So over at TCAT, that the position that I mentioned before, where I work for a bus service company, where I do create data analysis scripts. Basically, what I do is I write scripts that take in all the data that is collected on the various bus routes by the buses automatically. They actually do have sensors above doors. It tracks when people get on and off. It's no secret. The whole system that was widely used called Avail. It's just useful to get head counts at each stop. And what my program does is it takes all that data in and it processes it. So you can actually get an accurate journal of what bus has gone to what stop and when, and how many people got on, how many people got off. And so you just get this entire database filled with, oh, this bus got on, this bus ran this route at this time. It knows what the schedule is supposed to be, so it can tell you what stops were missed. And it just analyzes all this data for you. So it just handles like half that work for you. It really expedites data analysis. So that's currently what I'm working on. It's mostly complete. There's been a lot of awesome progress with it. And the way I actually got that position, it was quite interesting because I saw it on a job listing. I was looking for a job, like that I could have during the school year that was like had very flexible hours, and I found a listing on my school's job listing site. Like my Cornell University had a job posting site, so if whatever university you go to, there's a high chance they'll actually have a job listing site on their somewhere on their webpage. Not every university, but I think most do. And it was just posted there, like TCAT is looking for programming interns. I was like, okay, and I applied. He just asked me some basic, programming interview questions. Made sure my resume wasn't a lie, and he was happy. It actually wasn't. I was very fortunate because it wasn't super intensive, and I don't think it was really that competitive, honestly, because pretty shortly, he was happy with what he heard. He got back to me within less than a week, and he told me that I had a position. So after that, there was a few more meetings where he got me onboarded, explained everything, and from there, my boss and I have actually become pretty good friends. So that's always good. And no, it's been really a good experience, because in this case, TCAT TCAT's not that large of a company. They only run about 50 buses in the Ithaca area. That said, they provide service for a lot of people, including the entire Cornell campus and all the Ithaca and consolidated area, people who live in the consolidated area. So it's been a great time. So when it comes to finding an internship, there's a lot of sites online. As I mentioned, there's the job posting site. That's a really important one. But there's also things like Handshake, as well as there's Handshake, there's Indeed, all those different online job listing sites. It's really about just scouring those and just putting yourself out there. It's important to apply to a lot of different positions, just because a lot of them will not get back to you. That is just the reality of this, and it's even more so with the current job market. Oh, let me actually quickly just backtrack to TCAT. So my position at TCAT. So initially, the way it worked would be that I actually went into the office, and over there I would work for my boss directly. He would basically just like talk to me about like what we needed this program to be able to do. We decided early on that we would write this analysis script in Python, and it's purely backend development, which means there isn't really any like front end aesthetically things at the moment. We have talked about the potential of creating a sort of like front end layer so that it's pretty to work with, but at the moment it just doesn't really seem to be much of a need for that. So there's no GUIs or anything. It's just no user interfaces. It's simply just you run a command or two, and it just ends up starts processing data from the database. Eventually, and honestly, very fortunately for me and my situation, we had actually swapped to me being able to work remotely from where I currently live here, before the whole coronavirus pandemic actually hit. So I already had the ability to work remotely. We had set it up. It was actually a little bit tricky to set up, but once we had it set up, it was like you can either come to the office or work from home. And then when this pandemic hit, it was sort of like, great, you can work from home. So I was very fortunate there as well. So yeah, what it basically turns out to be is I would usually set aside some time, maybe like an hour to maybe 3 on any given day, and I would make sure I have no other distractions. I would open up my editor, and I sort of just like take a note of what time I started that. I would work for usually hourly blocks, if not half hourly blocks. I would then go on to once I was done, I would push all my code to a GitHub repository. For those who don't know, GitHub is it's a version control system that allows you to sort of like have your code up in the cloud, and any collaborators can also see the code and work with the code. And it's very handy. It's used universally almost everywhere in the workforce, because it's just a really awesome system to both have a version of your code in the cloud, where if your computer tanked or just just blew up on you in any way, you would still have that version up on the cloud so that you didn't just lose everything. It also allows you to revert back, sort of like roll back to a previous version if you need to, in case something like that happens, or you could at least see the previous versions as well. So it doubles up as a lot of really cool, awesome features. It has a lot of really cool, awesome features. So that's how I actually, that's been the primary tool I use to work with my boss. Is I would push my code up to GitHub, and then I would also just log my hours on the hour logging website we have, and just it would just be, and okay, of course the occasional email just to touch base, but it's been just steady work and then calls and some small meetings. But it's funny enough, we had set it up in such a way, just because I was also a student, that I could work remotely, and it's worked out really well for the current situation. So another thing I highly recommend to do, if you're currently a high school student trying to find ways to seem more appealing to jobs, to different potential employers, if you haven't already heard of hackathons, if you're in computer science, or if you're in computer science, I recommend something called hackathons. If you're not in computer science, there's something called makeathons, which are a little more tricky to find, but there's also something called makeathons. What these events are is that they allow you to sort of hop into this sort of really, really intensive 24-hour event where the objective is to build something as quickly as possible, and it's just a whole lot of fun. My first experience with a hackathon was a short hackathon in downtown New York City, and it took place at the Spotify HQ, and it was called the Music Monthly Hackathon. I think they might still do it. Well, not right now, but the Music Monthly Hackathon, it would last 12 hours, and then in those 12 hours, you were just working with anyone else who was participating in the event to create a music-related program in 12 hours, and then present it at the end of that event. It was quite the experience. They provided food. They provided they provided food and beverages, but it was really quite an amazing event. The next event I went in during high school, though, was something called Hack BCA, which took place in Bergen County Academies, which is a high school in New Jersey. That one was a more traditional hackathon, which is a 24-hour hackathon. You actually end up sleeping over where you're currently working, and these are called hackathons, but the type of hacking that they're talking about is building something and truly understanding that thing. So the types of things that were built there, for example, at other hackathons, this one hackathon, I forgot where it was, but this one hackathon, it was actually where the idea of Uber was conceived. This one team had built an app that can call a potential, like a driver on call to your location, pick you up, and bring you to a destination. That became Uber. That same team, they decided, this is a good idea, I'm going to continue developing this, and then they built Uber. This is way back, but so if that just gives you any idea on how hackathon culture tends to go, it's just it's the idea of just like, I want to build something that's like very useful, and you build it with you try to build it and prototype it in 24 hours, and then present it to a group of people, and you usually host a selection of judges who sort of like give you feedback and explain like, hey, maybe this, maybe you should do that. It's a lot of fun, and you gain a lot of experience with like hands-on coding, hands-on developing, and in the case of Hackathons, which is the same thing, but it includes hardware, like actually building things. I also do just want to go on a side note. If you're a computer science major, if you're an electrical engineer or a mechanical engineer, mechanical engineer is a little bit more tricky. You should probably look more for a Hackathon because they like to have all the components that you want. But if you're an electrical engineer, hackathons will also work because as long as it's a MLH event. MLH stands for Major League Hacking. Yes, it's meant to be really corny. If you can look on their website, you can see a bunch of different events that they sponsored, and they actually provide hardware kits to those events. At least last I remembered. I'm really hoping that didn't change, but they provide hardware kits where you can actually get components for free. And by the way, most of these events are completely free. You get these little, like, you could actually ask for wiring and such to build your project, and you could just go and just have fun building something. These events are really awesome. They're by far how I gained a lot of early on experience in terms of building projects. For Hackathons, I'm not entirely sure where you'd find those. Honestly, Google's your best friend in this case. The MLH hackathons I mentioned, you can find at mlh.io. I'll quickly drop that in the messages. I was hoping that would highlight, but in mlh.io, they have a list of all their events, where, I mean, right now is not the best time to attend one of these events, but normally they would have a whole list of events there. I don't think they're actually hosting them at the moment, but I believe they've all been canceled. But yeah, so these you'd attend MLH.io is where you can find these events, and at them, the MLH events will always at least have some sort of some basic electrical components, so you can actually start building some basic small prototyping things. But yeah, I don't know of any standardized Hackathons, mainly because it's a very Hackathons are very tricky because it's a lot more financially heavy on nonprofit organizations. So that's why there's been a lot more culture towards hackathons. Unfortunately, it's just a reality. But regardless, there are those examples I mentioned. There are some free Hackathons that occur. I know Cornell hosts a Hackathon, I think 2 or 3 Hackathons every year, so that's pretty nice. Definitely check to see if local universities do. The problem is, I think Hackathons, they usually do bar high schoolers from attending. They usually restrict it to college students. That is unfortunate, but that's, again, it's mostly as a result of them being afraid of like components being broken or lost by people, and so they try to restrict who can and can't go. It's unfortunate, but that might be the case. It's worth looking more into, though, for Hackathons. I'm just not entirely certain because I've only really had to go to hackathons. Hackathons, though, tend to be open to high schoolers and college students alike. In fact, there's actually a very precise high schooler hackathon scene, and it's honestly it's a great opportunity. I really recommend it. It teaches you a lot about industry programming, which is very different from anything that you learn academically in terms of programming. It teaches you how to think on the spot, improvise, just good enough code, which is something that occurs in industry a lot. So, move to the next question. Yeah, and that's actually this is actually a really good segue. So you might ask, what if I'm not that good of a student? What if I don't have the best grades, or I I struggle academically to in X, Y, or Z? That is actually completely fine. It's being good at engineering is separate from being good at school. You don't need to be good at school to be a good engineer. You just need to have an idea on how to sort of approach it. You just need to be good at problem solving, which usually is not the same thing as being good at school, funny enough. It's kind of ironic, honestly. It's about being able to find a solution that others aren't normally able to find. I will say, just because I'm actually not that, I know it's weird for me to say this, even though I'm currently at an institution like Cornell, but I am not a good student, I'll be honest. Primarily that's because I have so much going on. I have my attention split between many different things, so I often don't put as much time as I should in terms of my academics. But from what I can tell, that's kind of what Cornell did like about me, was that I had my attention all these different aspects of things. So that's why they actually even accepted me to begin with. And it's just really, really important to be able to the important thing is that you have this experience and that you know how to approach these problems. So let's say you walk into an interview and they don't see your grade right away, or might be on your resume, might not be. They're not waiting for you to say oh, I have this GPA or this or that. They're waiting for you to just be able to communicate to them that you if you're given this job, you can do this job. That's what my boss was concerned with when I had my interview with him over in TCAT. When we were talking, he was very quick. The reason why he very quickly was ready to accept me within less than a week was because when we spoke, when we talked about the problem, I was basically already talking about oh, so what are the current problems? How are we going to solve this? And I was very much already ready to just take on that mindset of this is a problem. Let's try to solve this problem. And I was ready looking at potential solutions. They want to see if you can actually do the job. It sounds so simple. It sounds so basic and so straightforward. And you're like, of course, yeah, I know that's what they want. But that's what they're looking for. I know it sounds weird for me just to say that, but when you walk into that interview, they're not looking for you to have, a spotless record of in terms of a spotless academic record or something like that. They're looking for someone who can take on that position and be able to really do a great job with it. Who can work with the team, who can work with whatever infrastructure you currently have, and solve problems realistically in that current infrastructure that they currently have already set up. They just want someone who can do the job, basically, and who's excited to do the job. So that's really important to communicate that you're excited to do that job and that you're already on it. You want to do it. It's not, and I think it's very much a very similar thing when it comes to BlueStamp. If you want to get into BlueStamp, it's not about being a really great student. It's about really having that passion to sort of just build projects, to you want to really be able to want to build projects, and you want to be able to sort of like, it's really about showing that passion that you want to build projects, and that's what's important to you. I know that's one part. That's what's important to me. I feel like that's the common sentiment amongst BlueStamp, especially that we're a bunch of people who just love to build projects. All right, and how should I come to build? How should I come up with project ideas that relate to my interests? The best way to come up with project ideas in any field, think about a problem you have in it. What's a problem that you have whenever you're doing something? What sort of problems do you want to what sort of problems do you run into? I know this person I'm about to mention is a somewhat controversial figure, but I think this was one really, really, really wise thing that he did say. Elon Musk once said that all the problems that he tries to solve are problems that he runs into himself. Either for better, honestly, I think either for better or worse. For example, he started the Boring Company because he got stuck in LA traffic. He started Tesla because he was tired of using cars that were still polluting, regardless of whether a hybrid or not. All of these things were problems that he saw in his daily life that he was like, okay, I'm going to fix this. And I think that is a really, 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 really important and wise thing. It's why he is the figure he is today, because he has that mindset of, there's a problem in my life, I'm going to try to fix it. That is de facto the best way to come up with an idea. The app that the startup I'm currently working on, it takes a problem that I had during my freshman year. There were times where I wanted to. I was working all day. I was tired. I kind of like it would be like a Friday night or something. I wanted to just hang out somewhere, find something to do. But if I went on like Facebook events, there would just be a bunch of random events I wasn't really interested in. I didn't really feel like slogging through all of it. And if I went on to any other events page, same story. There's nothing that I could find where it could be a personalized feed of things that I might actually want to attend. And so that's the problem that we wanted to solve. And because our entire team, we've all had that same problem back even as far as our freshman year, even before that. So it seemed like a really big problem that a lot of people have, that it's just like, oh, you just don't know what to do. Yes, there's all these events online, like, Facebook events and Eventbrite and all these different things, but none of them really, you would actually have to like look through the entire thing and eventually find something that might interest you. Versus sometimes when you're tired and you don't want to look through that entire list, you want to sort of get a feed of events that pertain to your interests. And so that's what began our idea. It was a problem that we had, and we wanted to solve it. Every hackathon I've attended has been the same story. This one hackathon, we built. It was a bit of a weird one. It was not actually a feasible solution, so there's not a good example of something that you'd go on to really develop. But it was just sort of like a play test idea on that same notion of build something that like it solves a problem. While I've been programming and stuff, there's a website you use called Stack Overflow whenever you run into issues. It's very useful. Has tons of knowledge on it. Basically, it has like a bunch of, it's basically a forums where you could post a problem you're currently having, code related problem you're having, and then other people come along and try to help you and provide potential solutions. And one issue with it, though, is sometimes you would find a problem and they would try to explain it via through the forum messaging board, but sometimes it just comes out way too complicated, and sometimes you would really want that individualized help, but you just can't really get that through forums. It was kind of a weird messaging sort of calling app that basically linked to a third-party phone number and connect to people if they needed to. And you could register as a helper. You could register as a question, a sort of I forget what it was called, but someone who would actually ask questions. And it would be able to connect you up through this little app. Of course, not really a sustainable model, but it was a problem that I saw where it was just, oh, I really wish I could get this individualized help. And I just built a quick, with a small team with one or two other people, we just built a quick little prototype of that during a hackathon, and we presented that. And we actually did win a sponsor prize from the, because we have the API we used for the phone number. They had a sponsor prize, and they actually awarded it to us. So it was a lot of fun. And again, it wasn't. Even they knew it wasn't something that could really be you could really seek out and build something. You can't really build an entire website or app around that. But at the same time, it's still an interesting concept and idea, and it was explored at a hackathon. The fact that we had a working prototype and we were able to show hey, this is how this would work. It really spoke volumes about oh, okay, cool. So you could do that. All right, so at this point, are there any more questions? Oh, do you need experience to do hackathons? No. Most hackathons, all MLH hackathons, do not require any experience whatsoever. A lot of people going to those events sometimes don't have any programming experience to begin with, and that's completely fine. A lot of it will feel like you're being thrown into the flames at first, because it's just oh, how am I going to even get started on this? It's fine. Find a team of people. They always have team finding events. Find a team of people, and together, they'll whatever the project is going to be built in, they'll be more than happy to sort of help you along with resources, sort of pick up and try to learn how to do it on the spot. And it'll be very tricky, but it's definitely possible to just learn at hackathons. I've actually had friends who attend hackathons with their first instance of ever programming, and over time, at the first one, you may feel oh, I didn't really get to do much, and that's again completely fine. You only had 24 hours, which is surprisingly short. You only had 24 hours to learn an entire programming language. That's not something you can really feasibly do. But then at the second hackathon, you're oh, well, I already knew the stuff from the first time, so doing this the second time around, it makes a lot more sense. You're able to do more, and the third one, you're able to do more, and eventually you're just doing as much as everyone else was, and eventually you're doing more than everyone else was. So it's the short answer is no, you do not, and the long answer is no, you do not. They also host most hackathons host workshops during the actual event, where they actually teach you various programming languages and tools. At one hackathon, I actually remember I did give an introduction to Java workshop, where I taught the basics of using Java, what it could be potentially used for, and other such applications. And then I also immediately followed that with an advanced Java workshop, which piggybacked off the basic one. and talk about the more complicated parts of Java. So workshops are really useful. They occur during a hackathon. They'll teach you how to use a tool, and it's really, really useful. Yeah. Are there any more questions? Well, all right. Well, I'm going to end the stream now. And also, by the way, hi Andrew, hi Ibrahim. It's good to see you both. Just wanted to wait till the end to say that. But yeah, if there's no other questions, give me one quick second. Okay. Yeah, if there's no more questions, I think I'll end the stream. But it was great to have the opportunity to sort of talk to all of you. And if you have any questions, I'm sure you can ask Brianna to send me an email. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.